Perfect. So just real quick, let me just tweet this. Let me make sure that all levels are
Okay.
good.
We're live. Yeah.
Yeah. So just for your context, this is going to be recorded, like dozens of people will watch us live, but we're sort of optimizing for the thousands of people that will listen to the podcast when it's released next week. So you could sort of pretend it's just us two.
Okay.
Cool. So Dessa, first off, welcome to Product on Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Dessa, obviously a rapper, a poet, a writer of Doomtree fame. There's a lot I want to get into. But first, I want to start off with the fact that you were a philosophy major at University of Minnesota.
Okay.
What did you, when you were in college, first off, what about philosophy compelled you to major in it? And two, what did you think you would do afterwards?
With the degree? Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly, a rapper finishing school, but I initially got into philosophy, I think, because it took really good writing. I wouldn't have identified that at the time, but like the philosophers who I was reading were trying to describe really challenging ideas. And so a lot of the time
who were you reading?
I read a lot of utilitarians, so like Jeremy Bentham and Mills and some of the English empiricists. It's definitely a school of like dead white guys,
right?
For sure. But the reason that I was initially attracted to a lot of that stuff, I think, was for the writing. When I was doing it, I thought it was for the ideas,
right?
But I think that part of what attracted me to it was that these guys were like using a lot of metaphorical muscle to try to communicate really tough concepts. And I like that. And also I liked, I ever since I was little, I really enjoyed language and the manipulation of abstract ideas. I remember when I was going to go get a shot. I don't know what shots you get when you're 5, but whatever those are, what do you get? Is it measles, mumps, rubella? I don't know. I was going to get one of those. And I told my mom that I was apprehensive, or didn't say apprehensive. I said I was scared and it was going to hurt. And she said, well, the needle is so little, it's not going to hurt too much. And in my head, I remember thinking, I wish the needle was half as big. And then I remember thinking, I wish it was half as big again. And then I kept going and I went, oh my gosh, you can divide by half and never get to nothing. And that was like my first explosion,
right.
Like the idea of infinity. Yeah. And I've always kind of liked those.
Did you, were your parents supportive from a young age of your love of words?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think either one of them would have identified me like when I was a little kid as particularly like outrageously musical. I had a keyboard and I sucked. I didn't do very well at it. But words I liked from the beginning. As a little kid, I remember reading what's the one? Peter Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Did you identify as a poet first or a musician? What was your first, artistic love?
I think it was just words generally, and then I had to figure out how to do it. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like, I love words. How do I get any money for that?
Right. I mean, from a young age, did you think, hey, how can I make a career as an artist? Or did you have other things that you thought you would do and fell into?
I thought I'd be in business. My mom was in business and she wore nice suits and she had, I remember she had a little bottle of Chanel No. 5. I remember that was like very careful because we had to all be careful with that if I were to touch her nightstand because it was expensive. Mm-hmm. And she had heels that would click like on the hardwood floors of our house. And I always associated that sound with like, that's what adulthood is. You know what I mean? Kind of this business vibe. And it wasn't until it wasn't until later that I thought maybe I could swing it as a musician, in part because it just sounded so tough. Like every kid wants to be in the NFL or an astronaut or I was a little bit embarrassed. I didn't want to have a dream that adults would say, that's just some kid's
thing. Yeah. When was the moment when you thought, hey, I could actually do this? Like I could make
it? Was super late. I was out of college already. I was, I graduated college a little early and I met the Doomtree guys right as I was finishing. And I think it was when I met them that it seemed like the vocational path kind of cleared and I could see a way to make a living out of it.
And talk about the sort of music landscape at this time. So this was early, mid 2000s? Yeah. Were there other groups like Doomtree who were making a living doing this, or was Doomtree one of the first?
I I think there were other groups who were making a living doing it, but Doomtree was the one to whom I was first meaningfully exposed.
Right.
So, the Rhyme Sayers guys have been running as an indie clique for a long time. And there were a lot of other artists and collectives that had started to form. Odd Jobs was one of them.
Right.
And yeah, so there was a scene, but I didn't know about it yet until I found Doomtree.
Talk about so a lot of people find Rhyme Sayers like, does like a decade after they were sort of started or became big. Talk about what it was like to sort of be in the music scene at that. Did everyone sort of look up to Atmosphere as the sort of the godfather of like indie, Minnesota hip hop? Or talk about sort of the origins of that scene and what it was like to be there.
Sure. To be honest, I can't really, because that wasn't what I was when I was 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. There were some rappers that I knew, but that wasn't my emphasis. And for a lot of dudes, it was. They were in the scene. They were going to Bon Appetit, which is like a local kind of cafe that used to have rap shows in the back every weekend. But that wasn't my story. I was like dyeing my hair at home and listening to Tracy Chapman and writing like genuinely bad poetry. So
but it seems like there is something somewhat unique about Minnesota in terms of producing so many great like indie music.
It's weird,
right?
It doesn't. I know a lot of people, particularly if I'm talking to somebody from the coasts, right? Trying to convince them that there is like a healthy, vibrant rap scene here. Something makes me, when I'm on a plane or something, they're like, I'm sure there is, but there is, there really is.
Yeah,
I know people who moved to Minneapolis from California to try to make it as a rapper.
And I feel like maybe in that time, although I could be incorrect, like a lot of sort of white artists, like Atmosphere and Idea, and this is sort of before Eminem sort of made that like mainstream in some way. Is that an unfair characterization?
I mean, there's a lot of white people in Minnesota.
Right.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of white rappers here too. Right. There's a lot of artists of color here too.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a bunch of white rappers here as part of the scene for sure. Yeah.
Did you get to know Idea at all, or did you work with him, or
a little bit? Yeah, some of the guys. There are 7 people in Doomtree, of which I'm one, and some of the dudes have worked with him really closely. I hadn't ever done a song with him, but he was a fixture of our scene, inarguably. He's a really incredible talent.
I feel that or some people have told me that they refer to him as sort of the David Foster Wallace of hip hop, in terms of someone who
I've never heard that, but I see why.
Someone who passed tragically young and sort of left behind a work that continues to grow on people.
To be honest, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking it was because of a mastery of craft that allowed for, in David Foster Wallace's case, it's this kind of, cerebral trapeze work that's just incredible, where he doesn't slow down. He expects you to keep up.
Yeah.
And I could see that being mirrored in Ideas.
And he was so crazy because, he was so in the battle scene and winning that when that was getting big, but then he also made these like philosophical albums.
And I think sometimes, like, even on the occasion that I'll feel the compliment about being articulate or well-spoken or bright and a rapper, sometimes I'm inclined to say, gently, that I would hope that being a rapper doesn't preclude in any way or make it seem more unusual that someone is intelligent and thoughtful. Because if that were the case, that seems like it might be a couch dig at Black culture or Black art.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think in Idea's case, just particular because he went low in terms of like, not low, but like he did a lot of like, battle, like he would call people that.
But battle is so, it is such a feat of wit. Mm-hmm. And if you're good, it can be a feat of intellect too. You're drawing, lightning. I'm a horrible battler, so this is not me being like, this is how I work. This is me like being in awe in the audience at battles. A lot of the digs are totally regressive and stupid, absolutely. But good battlers, there is just like the speed of cognition that's required to do that stuff is outrageous.
And did you know that did you ever try it and just say, hey, this is not for me? Or
it took half a bar for me to find out that I was not a good freestyler at all. Yeah.
How did you know that you had a gift as a rapper?
I didn't. I knew, to be honest, I was confident that I had a way with words. I knew that. I knew that I loved the manipulation of them, so I knew I had interest in doing it. But I felt most confident as like an essayist.
Hmm.
And but as a teenager and in my early 20s, I wasn't sure how to turn that interest into a job
Right.
or a career or a calling. And so it was really circuitously that I arrived at rap. It was after a lousy breakup. A friend of mine took me to a poetry slam,
Hmm.
and at that poetry slam, I competed and ended up meeting some of the guys with whom I would later rap. So for me, it was essays to poetry, poetry to hip hop.
Wow. And from,
Mhm.
talk about, you know, when you started with Doomtree, you've sort of grown as a poet, as an artist. It's one thing to grow your craft. It's another thing to say, hey, I'm going to make a living doing this. How did you sort of
Yeah.
train yourself to do that and to be someone?
Um, I think it was just so as far as the skill, I think I wasn't someone who you would see like, when like I said at 15 and say, wow, that's a natural talent. You'd say, it's an excited young lady. But I wasn't amazing right out the gate or anything. Um, for me, it took putting in the hours to get better. And then also I was lucky because I was exposed to this like stable of really talented people, so I can see the kind of art that I'm trying to make and the kind of influences that I might be interested in incorporating in my own crew. And then for me, it wasn't like a quit your day job and like, throw your serving apron down and head to stage with a microphone in your backpack. It was quitting my day job incrementally. So I was cutting down hours, cutting down hours. So at first I was making 10% of my living as an artist and 90% in the other things I
What
did.
type of
And
jobs
then
do you have?
um, I did the serving thing.
Hmm.
I tech wrote for medical companies. So I did like the manuals for pacemakers and
Yeah.
defibrillators.
How was that?
Um, it was tight. It was stressful. It was tight because I mean, I learned a lot. I remember I was at the Doomtree house and I was looking at an EKG, the heartbeat.
Hmm.
And one of the dudes looked over my shoulder and went, "Oh, is that a kick drum?" I thought, "Yeah, I guess." Um, but yeah, for me, it was like then switching the ratio so that now eventually I'm earning 90% as an artist and 10% as a other thing. Yeah.
So backing up a bit before even getting to the business, you mentioned you weren't a natural. That's not something someone a fan would know or someone would know just from listening to you. Is the sort of did you feel the way you got so good was one putting in the hours, but two surrounding yourself with the best artists you knew and just sort of like by osmosis, or were there sort of other things that you would strongly credit your
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it feels like this is where my Minnesotan kicks in, and like I don't want to talk about. I
the
don't want to
modest?
say, "Well, I got so good," but I mean,
Well, I'm saying it
uh,
for you.
like okay, fair
Now
enough.
you can tell.
I do think it was I the I still have a love and sometimes hate relationship with performing because it's like and with writing. I mean, as much as I love all this stuff, it drives me nuts because when you have like the seed of an idea, it's so exciting and it's perfect. The only way, however, to get it done is to render it less perfect. You can't hit every note. Your timing is never absolutely right. You're never going to be on pitch and full of breath at every show. So for me, I think I had like a natural resistance to like actually doing the song because in my head it was perfect. And whenever I tried to manifest it in the world, it's a little less perfect. Getting over that and just being more comfortable with creating material. The more you do, I feel like it's more of a flywheel because I sent out a new song yesterday to two guys in the crew saying, "Hey, I recorded this today. What do you think?" If I had done that like 10 years ago and they didn't really like it, oh my God. It was just, heart on the floor. And that means I'm not a good rapper. And it also means I'm not a good person. And now it's just one song of many, where those first songs, for me anyway, you're so vulnerable.
In terms of the type of music you guys wanted to make, and then you also know, hey, we want to be a business where we can eventually do this full time.
Mm.
What is that sort of, and then at the same time as you're with a group, people sort of evolve and want different things, and I mean, you guys, for the most part, like a decade, that's a long long time.
It's been a long time.
Uh,
Yeah.
what can you say about how you guys work together or have worked together, um, during that process?
Well, I think in any like 10 years in somebody's life, probably some of the biggest events and decisions weren't those that you planned. Do you know what I mean? Somebody broke up with you, or you had to move, or somebody got sick, or you got a job offer out of the blue, or money ran out, or money came in, and you reacted. And I think with Doomtree it was like that. Like in the beginning, we didn't sit down and say, "What's our 10-year plan?" We didn't have a 10-day plan.
Right.
It was just like, "This is a tight song. We should get a show for it." And then after we got a show for it, we should record that. And after we recorded it, I wonder if we could get any stores to carry this.
Right.
Let's just go to that store with a lot of them in the car and see if we can sell some to them. And then a few years later, we were still waiting to be signed by a major, but we realized that we were doing a lot of things that the majors might do, which is like take your CDs to the store, help you figure out how to record and manufacture it. So for us, I feel like the DIY ethic was a product of nobody really around to do it but us,
Right.
So it was as reactive as much as it was anything.
How did the group and sort of your artistic process survive or change or evolve after you and POS, one of the group members, broke up?
Yeah, I mean, it was not like my favorite summer. It was a really lousy summer because I think we were on the road, and um, so yeah, I had to perform. But as a professional, I had to perform, and I wanted to do a great show. And as a human being, I was someone who just been in a breakup, and all I want to do is like throw myself on a on a bed and cry. So try to balance that was tough. But to be honest, I did it, and he did it too. And for a while, I think that was one of the things I was proudest of, is like I didn't mess it all up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We managed to make good art and put that first, even when it meant that I was going to write a song that referenced him, or if he was going to write a song that referenced me, and that's going to be super weird on stage. But that's the best song I can write right now, so that's what I'm going to do.
I was just talking about this with a friend last night because I'm sort of thinking for myself. So I'm curious to hear your philosophy. Do you have a sort of philosophy on like being friends with exes or how to even live with?
I do. I always do, and then I mess it up, and then it changes every year. I think I do, and then it works for 18 months, and then I revise. And it's probably different with everybody, right? I mean, it's different with depending how the relationship ended. It's different how long you dated. I always want to, but as I grow, and I don't know, like philosophically, I feel like it should work,
Mm-hmm.
but it's tough. I mean, I only think that there's a certain amount of control that someone can exert over their feelings, and
Right.
that feelings are a product of the experiences and the circumstances in which you put yourself in. So you'd have to have some pretty steely nerves to constantly be putting yourself in coffee shops or bars with exes. I think it's tough. What do you think?
I'm glad you asked. What do I think? I think it's been a lot. My first sort of joking answer is I believe in being friends with exes. They don't believe in being friends with me.
You're friends with you. I should be asking them.
Right.
I should be asking
Yeah.
them. What do you think about my friends?
I think I would like to. I think it's hard for people that I've like been with over long periods of time. It's much easier for shorter. I think it's ideal, and in theory, I would like to. I think as a society, we should be a lot kinder to the people that we were closest with.
Oh, I like that. I can agree with that. Yeah.
But and I think I think X is like a negative word actually. Like it has negative connotations almost. Anytime someone like my ex, I almost wanted.
I know.
To describe that person who at one point was the closest person to you.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have strong views? And if you are, forgive me for not knowing. Do you have strong views on or against, or just what do you think about marriage?
Also sorting it out, but I like the idea of life partnership.
Yeah.
I don't think it's always possible. I don't know that like the pre-existing vows that you make when you get married are those that are they can't be one size fits all. I mean, nothing was one size fits all. So it seems weird that we would all kind of recite this litany of promises. But I really like the idea, if I can find it, of a partner to like bear witness to my life and have me as a witness to his.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means that you're going to be in love every year. To be honest, love is tricky. I can't decide love, but I like the idea of someone who, when you turn to say like, "Hey, do you remember when?" They go, "Yep, I
Yeah.
do." I like that.
I just officiated a wedding last week. It was the first wedding I ever officiated, and I was thinking that something about a wedding is weddings are often overdone, and there's a lot to it, but it is something to be said that it's the only day of your life maybe where you get everyone you love in a room together, to from family to oldest friends, and just sort of share their experience with you.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
It's interesting. Do you have kids?
I don't.
Do you want kids?
I kept thinking that I would, and I didn't start. So I probably have another year or two for like some panic alarm to go off, like, I need a kid. But so far it hasn't happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe in the
Do you
panic?
have kids?
No
Do I believe in panic? Oh, I believe in panic. Yes, I
the
do.
panic alarm, or the like sort of biological that'll just happen.
Uh, to be honest, it's never occurred to me not to believe it. I've seen too many friends wake up one day and go and get real like RoboCop-eyed and need to have a kid right away.
It is interesting. I've had a bunch of I have no kids, and I've had a bunch of people on the show who also and who are much older who don't have kids. Terry Gross came on the show, and
Terry Gross came on this show.
yeah, and she is
Wow.
Late 60s, and she
She's not gonna have kids.
yeah, she's not gonna have kids, and she's never even thought. She sort of like
Right.
the only thing that she's had is other people putting pressure on her.
Right.
to
If I didn't know that kids happened, I would never want one. The only reason I sometimes think about it is because I'm watching like, because I'm watching my friends, go off like Roman candles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, shit, is that gonna happen? Yeah.
Right. Who's someone as an artist who is making who you really admire in terms of how they've done their career? And so it doesn't have to be someone in music, it could be someone, but someone you say, hey, I would like to do something like that.
That's cool. I got weirdly emo when Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins split up. Because I really liked the way they were doing it, man. Like they had this like partnership and they had these kids and they managed to make this amazing art, but stay out of all the nonsense that can accompany making amazing art. It seemed like, the total Hollywood culture and the musical chairs of marriages and the hyper like look success obsessed vanity thing. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Then when she split, I thought, I don't know. Look at that. I have no special insight on that. That is just me in a tabloid, but
right.
Okay. So Susan Sarandon had been pretty cool. Who else do I like the way they're handling their stuff at the moment? I like how Sia has managed to make interesting images without making herself to an object of like beauty obsession. I think that's cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, and sort of in an abstract way, on Lena Dunham?
In an abstract way, I would say I think that she does a lot of stuff that's ballsy, and I dig. As a public person, to be honest, I haven't been like I didn't fall head over heels for a show, but I like what she says. I think she's got a clear head and an interesting mind.
Yeah. Who are some of your just favorite artists I know it's so hard to say, but outside of the ones you work with or work directly with?
Yeah.
In hip hop, in let's just say the last few years.
Okay, admittedly, I'm overdue for a favorite new rapper.
Sure.
But the album before the most recent one by an MC named Logic, I thought was great.
Yeah.
I thought he did some really interesting stuff. Today, I was listening at the gym to Pusha T because someone was like, "You got to check out that last album. You're messing up if you didn't." Yeah. But yeah, I'm overdue for a new favorite.
I mean, do you feel that it's such an almost cliche question at this point, but like that hip hop is in a good place, or that you like the stuff that's coming out generally?
There's so much of it that I almost feel like it's hard to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many distinct and like parallel tributaries now that I feel like it's hard to issue a singular statement on hip hop that would address all of it.
Yeah.
I like pop music, so I'm in the market for a club jam every once in a while. But that's Yeah, I totally am. But a lot of that is just a little right now, like there's a balance, right? Between like repetition and hooks and between I don't know, more aggressive musicality. You go too far in one direction and it's boring or not danceable. But if you go too
Right.
far in the other direction, it's boring and tedious, right? For me, I could use a little more variation within a song that seems to be popular right now.
We,
Meaning like a different sample or a different sound comes in, or like a totally different chord progression, or like I could use a little more difference.
right. When you're putting a group of songs, an album, or just a group of song a
Yeah.
project together, do you think? And I don't want to simplify it, but do you think, hey, I want songs that make people think. I also want songs that make people dance, or within the same song, you want people to do both,
Right.
or do you just make music and see what happens? How do you think about it?
I would say that I make music and just make the music, and then in assembling the album, then I'll start to get more I don't know what you call it, more deliberate and more analytical. So the first part of music writing is just try to be honest and brave, and to try to the best of your ability, like check all of your assumptions about what music has to be at the door. Okay, then after you've made the music and it's good or it's bad or it's sad or it's fast, then to try to figure out the best way to release it into the world. Um, and that includes like album sequencing and stuff. But yeah, I guess every once in a while I am like, I've written 4 pretty sad jams. Time for a happy, or my mom was always like, why do you make music to bleed out to?
Right.
She doesn't talk like that.
When you, let's just say you could do whatever you wanted artistically and didn't have to worry about money. In a sort of ideal world for Dessa, what would your artistic life look like? Would you, be making albums? Would you be writing like books? What would your ideal? I know you're somewhat close to it already, but if you didn't have
To
to
be
think about
honest,
it, you'd do it
yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah. Um, because of this answers that I've given to some of your earlier questions, when you said, where am I right now? And I said, I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment. And you said, do you have any kids? And I said, no. I am in that position now. So, and I'm wearing, I've got a Target t-shirt on or whatever. And over the past few years, I've been so terrified about money and trying to keep my overhead
Right.
low for a lot of years, that now I'm less so. I've been saving for like 10 and 15 years, afraid the bubble was going to burst. Um, but part of my objective as an artist is to not owe anybody anything, because I'm afraid I'll make lousy art.
Right.
And that includes record labels and all the big conglomerates. But to be honest, it also includes individual people. Like sometimes when I'm writing and I'm worried, will a fan who liked the last record like this new one? That's not a thought I want to get engaged in, because if they don't like it, I just hope they go find another artist who you do like.
Right.
But if I'm constantly worried about catering, I'm afraid that maybe I'll miss an opportunity to make something really bold and brave. And that might involve losing along the way. It might involve losing money. It might involve losing fans. It might involve losing support of partners. But I'd rather fear and suffer those kind of losses than feel like I had a chance to try something amazing artistically and I was beholden, or I was too afraid.
And as someone who's been doing this for a long time, when you look at the next few years, do you sort of
Mm.
say, hey, I haven't done this yet, I want to do this type of project, or
Yes.
what are some of the things that you definitely want to do?
Well, in 2017, I'll be doing my first show with a full orchestra, like a first complete
Wow.
performance with an orchestra. Yeah, and that is exciting, and it was totally flattering to be asked, but of course it's also terrifying. You know what I mean? Like I have to go and learn like what notes a French horn can play, and I don't
Right.
know. You know what I mean? I don't know that yet, so there's a lot of learning to be done. I'm sure that every French horn player on is like all of them they can play.
Wait,
But
talk about that a little. So how did that project come about, and what exactly, how do you even prepare for that?
well, some of it is first of all, it came about because I got a call. They said, "Hey, would you be game to do it?" I'd worked with from the orchestra itself. I'd worked with some choirs before. I loved it, and so when I got the call from the orchestra to say, "Would you be willing to do a full night?" There's a few thoughts of self-doubt run through your head. Like I don't read music, right? So I'm like, how am I going to be taken seriously by this crew, right? And then I was like, the other voice in your head is just like, say yes as fast as you can. Don't let them off the phone. So they asked me, I said yes very happily. But now, I don't want to just and they don't want me to just kind of walk in and say, okay, learn the music as is, right? You want to do something amazing that can only be done with like all of these people who are masters of their craft, you know, these impresario string players and the like. So I want to learn how that works. So I downloaded, you know, I mean, internet is a powerful thing. So I downloaded like even the ratios in volume between a man singer, a female singer, and a horn. So for example, I think it's like 1.5 women sing as loudly as one man. And you need 8 men to counter one horn. So to try to, you're almost like you're mixing by the number of players that you have on stage. It's analog mixing instead of, you know, moving dials like I do. So learning that stuff and working with an incredible arranger, Andy Thompson, to make the music new. Yeah.
Wow. And so what are some other projects?
Okay. I'm working on a book.
What can you tell us about the book?
Most of it's short stories. Some are true. So those I'd usually call essays. It's a stupid genre distinction, but sometimes I put them on Facebook for just a few minutes to ask for some editorial feedback about what's confusing or what's jarring. And so I've been lucky to have like a really cool club of kids online who at midnight when I post them will go on, say, okay, I don't understand the dialogue in this section. Character here is confusing, and then I'll delete it and go back to round 2. Mm-hmm.
Be your sort of editors as well.
Super cool, yeah, and more thoughtful than you might imagine. You know, I'm not asking for like edit. I'm not asking for, could you rewrite this for me? But like, hey, what's confusing? What? Yeah, and I've been surprised at how helpful that feedback is.
When you are sort of going in between mediums like that, how do you force yourself to do the work? Like, is it deadlines? Is it do you do the essays when you're inspired? Do you do music? Like, how do you?
Yeah, I would say sometimes it's deadlines. Also, sometimes it's like seeing other people do amazing things, and it's that hybrid that you get of like awe and celebration and wonder and panic that you can't meet their mark. You know what I mean? So like, it's not I want to take you down. It's I want to go up there too. Yeah. So sometimes when I hear really good art, that'll set me writing.
With essays, who are you? Who's the people that really inspire you?
Essays. A lot of them are named David. So I like David Foster Wallace and David Sedaris when I was younger, particularly. David Rakoff too before he passed. So I like those kind of like, they're not the super long ones. I like the like 5 to 10 page length stuff where the themes are kind of heavy sometimes, like death, love, loss, but the tone is clever, snarky, funny. You know what I mean? So there's honey and medicine both. Yeah.
I mean, when I read Consider the Lobster, I read, I think, everything by Dave Foster Wallace. When I read Consider the Lobster, I was like, oh my God, if I can make anything close to as good as anything.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's not wanting to, I don't know. There's a couple books like that. That was one for me too. But like in reading it, you simultaneously, you want to tape it to your hand and burn it. It's just such a, I don't know. It's frustrating and inspiring, the whole thing. So
talk about your process a little bit. So if Seinfeld sort of goes under the like don't break the chain philosophy of write jokes every day, do you have sort of rituals you absolutely swear by? Take us through.
You know how you said that you have a philosophy of being friends with your exes, but they don't have a philosophy. That's how I feel with my routine. Like I have a philosophy of writing something every day, but the writing doesn't have a philosophy with me. No, I was mean to, and I have kind of a lousy set of habits, I would say. Sometimes it's glut and making myself sit down, or knowing that Doomtree is going to put a song out, and if I don't get my 16 done, I'm not going to be on that song. Sometimes that, and then every once in a while, there will be kind of like a scrap that hits and feels inspiring. Like, yesterday I was getting my hair cut, and the woman who's cutting my hair, Laura, she said that she was talking to this woman whose job it was to like herd bees. So when a what do you call it? Swarms? When a swarm escaped from their hive and was wild and free, she would be called to go and help beekeepers get the bees back. I thought, you can herd bees? Like, I don't know what that's going to be, but that's going to be a thing. You know what I mean? So it's almost like just kind of collecting these pieces in a butterfly net, tucking them away, and then at a later time, like upending the bag to see what's in there and what could be put together in, like a mosaic, to create a finished piece.
But yeah, it's fascinating. But because you work within different mediums, do you think, hey, this would be perfect for an essay, but actually go with a song? Or how do you?
Yeah, to me, it seems like that's an essay. Because if I were like, if I were in a song like, can you believe you can hurt? I mean, it just sounds ridiculous. It's more of like a funny piece of information. It's not imagistic in a way that you want to sing it, at least for me. I don't like to get like fun science facts in songs. I like that better in a different medium. But yeah, I do feel like there's three things usually it is. It's either an essay or a song or a poem. And a lot of it, trying to categorize an idea, is determined by how big that idea is. So like if an idea is going to take 10,000 words to investigate, that's going to be an essay, because also it's going to be a 27-minute song, So sometimes if I think the idea is really, really, really strong, just like a single line, I'll say, I want that to be on the page because I want that to be the focal point. Whereas in music, I do tend to be a little more conversational, and you've got this added driving force of the beat, of all the instrumentation. Yeah. So if I think something's really, really strong as an image, a lot of times I'll consider it for a poem before I'll consider it for music.
Are there times when, let's say Doomstreet's got to get a song out? Well, the broader question is, do you ever write songs just in like one full swoop? Just like
once or twice. That's it.
Really,
yeah.
Always sort of a piece. So if Doomstreet says, hey, here's the song, you can get it by tomorrow. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't I don't do this, and I don't work that quickly.
Oh, I see. Well, usually it's like on my phone, I have, like in the notes function.
Yep.
I have rap RM, prose RM, meaning rap rough material, prose rough material, song rough material. So if Doomtree were to say, hey, there's this amazing opportunity, we need an 8-bar from you by tomorrow, which would rarely happen, because it's not like we get, calls from the president, I need an 8-bar by 6 p.m. But I would open up my rap RM and see, like, do I have 4 sets of couplets that I could put together to make that 8-bar.
Right. And so you're always getting material together, and then sort of once you get a beat, you could sort of identify, or a concept, you can identify.
This could go here, this could go here. Okay, and then I can write a little bit of material to bridge these 2 pre-existing ideas. Yeah, exactly. But I've always sort of got like a canteen, like a backpack full of spare parts.
Yeah, canteen is a good word. As an indie artist, first, do you like the term indie artist?
I don't mind it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it. I guess I do.
Yeah. Is the biggest way indie artists make a living is tours?
Yeah.
Merchandise?
So tours. So as everybody knows, you can get music for free, right? So that means that the biggest way to monetize your career is through live performance, because watching us chat with our earphones in and we're on our couch is not exactly the same as being on our couch with us, So being in the room while a live show happens is still different than watching the live feed, right? For me, I used to work at a college here in Minnesota called McNally Smith, and I thought it was so cool. The president of the college, would say on the first day to new students, you probably heard that there are not a lot of jobs in music, and that's true, but there's a lot of work in music, and I found that to be so true. So for me, it's like trying to diversify all the ways that I make money, so that if any one way dries up, I've still got a few backup parachutes.
I know you're also, and Heidi was telling me, you're pretty passionate about, well, actually, before I get into my broader question, let me ask the question Heidi just asked. What is the sort of next stage of performing? Are you sort of intrigued by virtual reality and its potential, or what do you think as a performer?
I did a show on Second Life once, but this is years ago now. And it's so many years ago, maybe it's not even worth talking about, but it didn't blow me away. It felt weird, I know that POS, one of the dudes in the Doomtree crew, is like 100% sold on virtual reality. He's just like, this reality, this is a waste of my time. He's all about it.
Right.
So yes. But are you asking if what that is the next like technological frontier of
Yeah.
performing? I can honestly say I have no blessed idea. I'm not that much on the floor that I think I'd be a good weather girl for that.
Mhm.
So.
Do you think you get tired of performing?
Yeah. But a lot of times if I get tired of performing, that's an indicator that it's time to write new music, because anything that feels too safe, I don't want it to ever feel like I'm coming to town because I need money.
Yeah.
I hate the idea of that, right? I want to come to town and do a show because I have art.
Right.
And so if a show feels stale, a lot of times it means that it's time to do something to make sure that I feel like I'm taking an artistic risk. Whether even if it's something small, like here's a new cover, or let's really rearrange this song so that there's a medley that nods to another song that if a particular listener has been listening to us for years will go, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
the bridge from the song. Oh, it's a pun. Ha, ha, ha. Like trying to make sure that there's something that makes me feel a little bit afraid, and also that feels like it rewards people for coming back. You know what I mean? I don't want to cash in. I don't want to ring people out. I want to make something they say, when she puts on a show, it's worth catching it.
Yeah.
I feel like the reputation is like the one thing that I have, and I want to be so careful with it. And I want to be so careful of what I ask from people,
Yep. I went to a show of yours in Ann Arbor a few years ago and loved it.
Was it spoken word or was it music?
Spoken word.
Wow,
Yeah.
that one was Saul Williams?
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
cool.
It was crazy.
Cool.
And I remember buying a CD from you. Let me ask you this: you're a yeah, absolutely. So you also teach, and I've taught creative writing. So I'm curious, one, when you talk to aspiring artists, what sort of misconceptions do they commonly have about you as the life of an indie artist?
I think they think we're rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was fun. It was just like, POS was the first one to make it in a national way in our crew. And I was still teaching at that point. And I remember asking him to come to my class to talk to some of the students. And I first showed them a video that had been playing on MTV of his. And then I sat him down in the chair and said, okay, let's do a quick Q&A. And I think, one of the first questions was, how much do you make? And they were just blown away. It was just like as much as a teacher, fireman makes, I would imagine that everything is different now or a few years later. But yeah, I think people often expect that artists who tour nationally and internationally are like set financially, which is totally flattering, but not true. not always true.
Right. In terms when you are teaching, how much of it do you think can be taught?
That's heavy. I mean, sometimes I would say, okay, there are some skills I think I can teach, and there are some skills that I think that I can't. But I would, as I plumbed those limits, I don't know that I was confident that that was a product of the student or of me. Meaning, like, I know what I love, and I think I can communicate an enthusiasm, and I can teach a lot of the skills that I'm good at. But I'm not good at everything. And I wondered, as there was one student in particular who was just so sweet, but I didn't get his taste. You know what I mean? But he was willing to work. He was willing to grind. And I just thought, well, there's a few possibilities here. One, this guy needs a skill that isn't teachable.
Mm-hmm.
Two is this guy needs a skill that is teachable, but I can't teach it. Or three, I'm just wrong, and his music will be the one to take over the world. You know what I mean? And I'm just the old guard. So I think it's tough to tell. My suspicion is that I think that there are some things that are not teachable. I've been told by poets who review my work and are teaching me skills, Dessa, you need work on XYZ. But I got an email the other day that said, but you're an excellent phrase maker, and that's not a teachable skill. But you know what? I bet that every teacher would have a different set of unteachable skills. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Do you think, well, first up, why have you been tempted to leave Minnesota to move somewhere else?
Well, I spend a lot of my time in New York when I'm not on tour too.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, those are the two domestically. I mean, I like everybody. I probably have a dream, like, I'm gonna spend a year in Barcelona, but I don't think I am gonna spend a year in Barcelona. I think that when I'm stressed out or in traffic, but yeah, for me, New York has always been a really big call. So being able to spend a job where I can work there and try to build there too, and be in Minneapolis, I feel really lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's such a portable job. It's a drag because you have to travel so much. It makes you port it around. You're like a turtle. You never get to be totally unencumbered by it.
Right.
If you stop touring, you're like a shark. You stop swimming and you just suffocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, New York. Short answer is I love New York.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm in San Francisco now. But going back to to some broader questions to end and to close the last 10 minutes, how would you characterize your sort of religious or spiritual beliefs?
Atheist.
Always? Or how did that come about?
How did they come about? Raised Catholic, and I would say I was probably 13 or 14 by the time I was something like that, mid-teens, early teens. Yeah.
Do you have a meditative practice, or do you do yoga, or how would you characterize your spirituality, if at all?
I would say I'm not spiritual or religious, but I find it incredibly important to treat people well. And sometimes I feel like some very moral, very interested in morality. Trying to be better is important to me, and to try to treat other people well is important to me. But I don't call myself spiritual or religious. I just started doing a meditation, kind of reluctantly. I'd interviewed Russell Simmons, who wrote a book on meditation. So it's like the least likely path into mindful living is Russell Simmons. But
Right.
Read his book, and then Laserbeak, who does like a lot of the operational management of geometry, he got into an app called Headspace. And anyone that Laserbeak has had a conversation with that lasts longer than the last 10 minutes has been told about Headspace in the past few months. He's really into it. So I got into that too.
Right. It's funny, if you told me, in fact, that you were either very religious or spiritual, I wouldn't be surprised, because you come across as very, very like kind and at peace in a way that only someone comfortable with their relationship with the universe could be. Do you think?
Thanks. I don't know.
What do you credit that? I know it's kind of a weird question, but
what do I credit that? God, I feel like, I feel so unsettled so much of the time. Getting better, to be honest. But like in my 20s, oh my God, what a wreck. I hope a kind wreck, but a wreck, Now I feel like I've got feet underneath me and I've got some stability, but I do think a lot about, I feel like philosophy taught me a lot about conflict, big conflict of ideas. Like whether it's everything from gay rights to somebody who has a different opinion than me, or different stance than me on abortion, to a different stance on genital cutting. I'm just doing all these women's issues now, but to really, really, genuinely, for real, like try to give them the benefit of the doubt and understand the underlying precepts and principles, because almost always we share those in common. So genital cutting, I was having a conversation the other day with a guy who's like, don't see an issue with it. And I was like, what are you talking about? But as the conversation continues, he's just like, dude, this is just another instance in which we're really foisting these paternalistic values. It's a colonialism. We've got a way that we handle stuff, and then we just wander into this foreign country. We don't understand how anything works, and we say you can't do that. Well, okay, if that's the engine that's driving his thinking, we are no closer to agreeing. But all of a sudden, he's not villainous.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? There's no bad guy in the scenario. What we've done is we've placed a different relative value on values that we share in common, right? Mm-hmm. I'm lecturing you for no reason at all on genital cutting, but you know what I mean? It's like being charitable in the way that we engage with our adversaries. It's something that I don't always do, but I always want to.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. Most people definitely don't do that.
Right. I heard that phrase when I was in college. It was a charitable interpretation, because I thought I was some hot shit. I went in and I had done a logical proof of something that I think it was Plato had done. And I was like, that's a fallacy. And I put it on the board. And I just was just like, I win the game, like philosophy's over. I won. And the teacher was like, good point. Yes, it is a lie. problem there. I'm sure person identified this. Now the task is, because he's not here to defend his work, you have to put all of your capacity in the service of his argument. That's what a charitable interpretation is. Put all of your horsepower into deflecting your own point. And I thought, oh man, I don't win philosophy. I got to do it again.
Right. What's something that you used to fervently believe, whether it was about music or work or relationships or whatever, that you now see as misguided in some way, or something you really changed your mind on?
Yep. A couple things. One was, as raised Catholic, I remember doing a debate on the pro-life side, and I smoked it. I was 13, so my opponents were also 13. But I've since reconsidered that stance. Although I'm not interested in saying that everybody who's pro-life is women hating. I don't think that's true. Another one would be forgiveness. I feel like I thought I knew what forgiveness was. It was when somebody says they're sorry and you say, I accept your apology, and you're not mad. And now I feel like forgiveness has nothing to do with them being sorry. It's not being mad, irrespective of the position that they take. And it's way harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, that's a term, a concept. And also, I guess, the Catholic concept of grace.
Yeah, totally. I love that concept. Even though it's not the worldview I ascribe to, it's such a valuable concept.
Can you, as someone, I'm trying to understand it better, what is sort of the difference? Is grace a subset of forgiveness? What's the relation between grace and forgiveness?
Okay, so you had an afternoon interview with an atheist. Okay, and I just want to remind you, and you asked her to explicate the terms grace and forgiveness. Oh God, I probably can't do so well, but I do think there's this idea of an earned forgiveness versus an unearned forgiveness. So like, there's nothing, I think a Catholic would say, there's nothing that you can do that makes you worthy of heaven. It's only by grace that you are granted access. Now, to move that into a more secular context, the idea that to me it's about charitability, and about trying to be my best self, even when there are a lot of other selves competing for expression. Like for me, I've never been able to suppress stage fright. For me, it's about learning how to sing nervous. Similarly, like I can't stop being jealous. I can't stop being petty, but I can stop from behaving that way and try to give the air and sunlight to the better feeling.
Well, I'm curious how this relates to your music. Like, do you ever write a song and say, hey, that doesn't express the best side of me, or actually I hate that side of me that it expresses, and I don't even want to honor it in some way? Like, what do you think about?
That's interesting. I guess in some ways, I don't know if this is consistent with what I just said, but in some ways I sort of thought that giving voice to the struggle of that, of like, I want to be good, I don't know how to be good, or I want to be kind, but I'm tempted to be cruel. Like, giving voice to that struggle has felt true. And I think true things are usually good things. Not always, but usually. Like, hearing a true story of someone's hard experiences, for me, usually feels like an enlightening story when it's told truly. Yeah,
I love that. And I do want to say, I think that was a better description of grace than many religious people could. So as an atheist, you were a well-educated one. Another broad question, but before you talk about sort of women's issues, and I know you're passionate about a bunch of causes. So the question is, if you had incredible resources, let's just say like $500 million, $1 billion, like a crazy amount of money, in terms of the problems you want to tackle and work on, what would you do?
I think about that a lot. And I think about how complicated philanthropy is, on those sometimes when I've engaged in it, it's like, it's amazing how little 100 well-meaning people can do sometimes, like it really is. So for me, I love when people really, really take our intuitions to task and ask us to change them. There's like a philanthropic organization who said, "Hey, we've got all these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that go out and have all these initiatives, whether it's inoculations or safe housing or latrine building." And they said, "But we're presuming that this works better than just giving poor folks money." And I presume that. And she said, "So we're going to try it. We're going to do it the other way. We're just going to hand cash," which intuitively seems like it's not likely to build infrastructure and lasting wealth, and found that it had some amazingly productive results. So I think I would be interested, if I could, in finding one of those organizations that's not just tackling a problem, but that's changing the way that we think about how problems are best solved.
Cool. The last question before we allow
Yeah.
you to plugs. You've been doing this for over a decade, and you're going to do it for decades and decades to come. But as you think about, how do you think about your sort of legacy as an artist and what you want to, people to say, about you?
I'd like people to say, or to believe that there was a continuity of voice, even working across mediums. Like my goal, I guess, has been to build a bulletproof brand, so that whether it's a book or a rap show or a one-woman show, people will say, "I don't know what this is, but I know that the last thing that I went to that she put on was thoughtful and challenging and beautiful." So I want to stay art centric and try to do those things in every project.
And how about as a person? What do you want people to say?
I want to be kind. And I know that sounds so trite, but man, in daily practice, being kind is hard.
It is.
Like it can be really hard if you every hour, if you think, what is the kindest way that I can handle this? Even just some nonsense emails, right? Somebody wants something from you, or some dude cuts you off, or the cashier at the coffee shop is rude to you for absolutely no reason. Like, being kind in life and death scenarios is almost effortless, and being kind in daily exercise is tough.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful way to close. But you ever read George Saunders?
I did. The 12th of December, is that him?
Yeah.
10th of December. Well, I'm 2 days ahead. Yeah.
And he has this great essay on, or commencement speech on kindness.
Cool. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Awesome. Well, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for chatting. Lastly, I just want to give you an opportunity to plug everything that's upcoming for you, and we'll obviously promote it as it gets closer to coming out. But what can fans be looking forward to?
Yeah. So, first orchestra show 2017, and then I'll be on tour with Doomtree the summer of 2016. We'll be hitting Chicago and Cali. So yeah, I'd say maybe stop by doomtree.net for the show announcements to see if we're coming anywhere near you.
Any SF when you're in Cali?
Oh, I was trying to define SF as fast as I could. I don't know if we will be in San Francisco this year, but it's early. So
yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, this has been a real pleasure, and we will stay tuned to promote those as it gets closer to date. Thank you for chatting with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Bye, Dessa.
Bye.
Awesome. This is a fantastic episode with Dessa. If you liked it, please tweet at her at Dessa Darling, DESSA DARLING, and let her know that you're a fan. Check out doomtree.net, as she mentioned, to check more Doomtree music. Again, like classic hip hop group. And check out Dessa's work. She's got a lot of fascinating stuff. You can find a lot of it online. Thank you to Heidi for setting this up. And man, I feel sort of just like kinder talking to her. Yeah, hope you guys all feel good too. This has been another episode of Product Hunt Live. Tweet at Product Hunt or at Eric Torenberg to let us know what you think. And stay tuned for the next episode. We have another one tomorrow with Sahil Lavignia from Gumroad, founder of Gumroad. And yeah, as always, it's been great, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day, everybody.